What if your greatest wounds held the key to your deepest healing? In this soulful episode, Stacey Fitzgerald invites us into the sacred world of becoming safe, where nervous system regulation, spiritual integration, and embodied breath come together to help women rise from the ashes of betrayal and reclaim their wholeness. Welcome to Happiness on Tap, where we bring you inspiring stories and practical insights for a happier, more fulfilling life. Your go-to podcast for uplifting conversations that stir the heart and ignite the spirit. I'm your host, Leann, and today we are welcoming Stacey Fitzgerald, a woman whose life is a living metaphor for healing. Stacey is a singer, songwriter, speaker, certified nutritionist, somatic breathwork practitioner, and trauma-informed horse trainer. She draws from her own journey through the big four traumas: childhood programming, disordered eating, a near-death horse accident, and betrayal in a 20-year marriage, to help women heal deep relational soul wounds. Through her online course and community, Becoming Safe, Stacey uses music, metaphor, breath, and nervous system science to gently guide women home to themselves. Her work is a testament to how soul wounds can transform into soul wisdom when held with grace, courage, and the right tools. This conversation is a masterclass in embodied healing and a powerful reminder that it is possible to feel safe again, even after your trust has been shattered. Let's welcome Stacey to the show. Stacey, it is so wonderful to have you join us today.
Thank you. It is absolutely wonderful to be here with you and with all of the listeners. I'm honored.
Thank you. And what a better way to start this conversation than to have Stacey share the most powerful song that can touch every one of us in some way. Stacey, if you will take it.
Awesome. I'm going to sing a song called We All Choose, and I'm going to let this song speak for itself. Life is a story we all get to read. We are set on a stage even before we breathe. And the pages start turning, the words just fall out like a spring in the desert. They pour out our mouth. There's no hold on a minute, I'm not ready yet. We just get what we're given and give what we get, and they'll feed us our lines to get on with the show. We don't know what to do, so we do what we know. And we choose love, or we choose hate. One thing we all will not lose, we all choose. Life is a story we all get to write, with the ink of our past and the gift of new sight. We can write the same chapter again and again, or blot out the lines with the very same pen. We all sign our name with each choice that we make. We don't take what we need, we don't need what we take. In the plot we are cursing, it's in our command, 'cause the pen we are holding is in our own hand. And we choose love, not lose. We all choose. Love always gives us the choice, always gives us a voice, always hopes and protects, never holds to regret. Love is mercy and just, we'll choose always to trust. Love is patient and kind. If we choose love, we find love was there all the time. Life is a story we all get to live. We can choose to be thankful and choose to forgive. There's no back door to pain, there's no getaway car, but there's joy to be found from each thorn and each scar. As we carve out our name with each choice we make, when we take what we need and we need what we take. And we each hold a cup that can quench the same thirst. We're ashamed to be last, but afraid to be first. Love always gives us a choice, always gives us a voice, always hopes and protects, never holds to regret. Love is mercy and just, we'll choose always to trust. Love is patient and kind. If we choose love, we find love was there all the time. And we choose love, or we choose hate. The one way we all will not lose is when love is what we all choose.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor and a privilege for you to play that song for us live, to share your beautiful voice.
Thank you. I am shutting off this little track here. Thank you for the opportunity to sing it and share it, and to share my stories. I appreciate it so much.
I am ready when you are ready, so we can jump in sharing those stories.
I am good. Back to talking mode and singing mode off.
You talk about relational soul wounds. How do you define them, and why are they so deeply impactful for women?
Yeah, I don't know if I coined that or not, relational soul wounds, but it's kind of become the definition that I use for what we hear as betrayal trauma, which actually, when I first heard of betrayal trauma, I didn't really know what that was, though it's part of a big, big part of my story. And the reason why I think that term relational soul wound is so important and impactful is, especially for women, is all humans are relational, but women in particular really gravitate toward relationships. And relationships are where we want to feel safe. And so when we have what we would call a betrayal, which the way I look at betrayal is when someone we thought should have had our back didn't, and or they could be the one that actually caused that wound. And the word trauma, like a literal definition from the Greek, is a wound. And so I see betrayal trauma as a wound to the soul that happens within a relationship that we thought we were safe. And that is why it's so impactful, because we thought we were safe, let down our guard, and then received this blow. It was experienced as a blow. And it kind of rocks this concept that I'm not sure I'm safe at all anymore.
Yeah, that is a very accurate definition. And it's funny because I really only learned the term betrayal trauma maybe within the last 6 years. I think I had associated those wounds with other things like abandonment or just other words or feelings or emotions. And I stumbled across the word betrayal trauma somewhere in something that I was listening to. And then I threw myself into wanting to truly understand it. And it was amazing how specific and defined it really was to my lifetime of trauma.
Totally feel you. Same thing here. Stumbled into it and then went, oh, that's what I have, you know. And I'm not one that loves labels, but sometimes a label can be so helpful because you go, oh, I'm starting to read through these symptoms and you mean I'm not this uniquely crazy, strange individual, but I'm experiencing something that somebody else called a thing. And that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it has been very helpful in my trauma healing because I'm able to use those identifying words to help me replace memories that were lost when I was in my heightened trauma sense, where I had a lot of brain fog and memory loss.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with verbalizing what my body was going through. So having a book like a dictionary, which for me was Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, really helped me to rebuild my vocabulary around my emotions. So for anyone who is struggling to understand what you are feeling, there are words that can define it. And
Yeah.
I love having a feelings wheel. I keep that kind of handy because it can help me then pick things that I can feel, and then I can journal or go deeper into those words and really understand where those feelings are coming from and help. I think in the first part of my trauma healing is just to be able to identify it. So I was like you, it was like, oh, this is a thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't.
Yeah. Recognizing, I love the acronym RAIN. I think I got it from Buddhist teachings, but recognize, acknowledge, inquire, and not identify. And I've heard it reframed in lots of different books and people that I've connected with. But I love that because sometimes we just don't even, we won't pay attention, like turn a blind eye. I picture it like an emotion comes knocking at our door. And it's like, oh, nope, I'm not answering that. Nope, nobody's at my door. Lock the doors, pull the shades. And when we learn to do what you're saying, which is like, maybe I can just say, oh, somebody's here. Maybe I can say hi. And then the picture that I love in my mind is invite them in for a cup of coffee and sit on the couch and talk. Inquire. What are you here for? What message do you have for me? And then not identify. It's not who I am. Oftentimes we'll say things like, I'm angry. No, that's not who I am. I am angry. No, I am a human feeling feelings of anger. And I'm hosting this emotion that showed up at my door named anger, and I'm going to listen to it. And that gives me such a better perspective and ability to not be afraid of my emotions and the feelings that come. But if I can host that emotion in a way that feels safe, which brings us back to that big, great S word, safe.
I love that definition and that analogy. And it's funny because only just last week, I think I shared a clip from another Synergy individual. No, actually, he wasn't from Synergy, but a gentleman who's been doing the work.
Yeah.
And he defined it the same way, is that knock on that door.
Oh, cool.
And so that's a great way, understanding it, inviting it in, getting to know it, so you don't fear it.
Right. Yeah. I love this analogy too. Like if I think, let's say one of my sister-in-laws dropped off one of my young, nephews or nieces to watch, and they got upset while they were with me. The task is not get rid of the child because it's upset. The task would be take care of the child so it can feel better, so that when their mommy comes back, I can hand back the child in hopefully a good place, instead of like, oh yeah, they got upset and I got rid of them. Well, that would be strange, but that's often what happens with our emotions. Like, oh, I got upset, but got rid of that thing, and now I'm fine. Like, what if there were children that just want our attention, and they just want to be heard and listened to, and they might have a need or a message, and what if we just listened? Like, what's the possibilities that would show up if we listened?
And again, another perfect example of how to understand it, because for the most of us, it is our child. It is our inner child
Yeah.
that, we do need to listen to. We do need to hear them and see them and make them feel safe in however they didn't feel safe at that time.
Right.
So yeah, again, thank you so much for explaining it that way. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people, when you start to do the work, you start to understand that it's that part of us that we need to work on, as opposed to my lifetime of putting it in Pandora's box and closing
Right.
the box and locking it up.
Yeah, locking it in a back room in that house somewhere, right? Sliding some food under the door every once in a while. Don't come out.
Because boy, when they come out, they come out.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something I think we'll get to later. What do we do when they need to come out? Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're mad, you know.
yeah, for sure. We talked about, your big four traumas.
Hmm.
Can you walk us through your big four traumas and how each one kind of helped shape your healing journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I call them that my big four because that's kind of how they came to me. When we both talked about sort of stumbling into betrayal trauma, I had an experience where mine came back to the surface and I began to almost see like this movie reel playing back. And these were the four big things that popped up in my mind. And as I came to put them into this package of becoming safe, the course and community, I saw that they each stood for sort of a general way that trauma happens in our life. So the first big four for me was what people would normally see as a trauma. I was in a near-death accident. I'm a horse trainer, and I had a horse flip over on me, excuse me, and crush my leg, my right leg, excuse me. And I was alone for almost an hour, drug myself down a road. The bone ripped through my leg, ripped through my leather chaps. I nearly bled to death. My leg, painting this really grotesque picture so that you can see that this is the kind of trauma. I've never once shared that story with somebody and had them go, oh, that's no big deal. Yeah, your leg was crushed and your bones were out and you were dragging yourself down a road and you almost died. Okay, no big deal, right? It was really recognized as a trauma. And I was rescued and fire truck and ambulance and EMS and then to the hospital and doctors rushing in and surgeries and then in the hospital and nurses and family and flowers and everybody praying in the community. My trauma was recognized. It was validated. So I look at that trauma as, yeah, that's often what people see as leaving the classic PTSD. And yet, because that trauma was witnessed and validated and cared for, honestly, it's my better healed trauma. The second big four I go into is what I call the coping mechanism. And for me, that was my disordered eating that arose in my young teenage years and continued well into my 30s. Not as prevalent, but the thought patterns persisted. And what I see that as the general thing is that we take on, because of the stresses in life, usually early on, most of us, many of us, would love to say all, develop these coping mechanisms to deal with the pain, like you and I just talked about, these very uncomfortable emotions that come up. And when we're a child, we don't have the capacity to deal with them. And so we create these coping mechanisms. And to me, that was disordered eating. It looked like bulimia. It looked like restricting. It looked like being over-focused on my outward appearance to feel good about myself. And so what we dig into there in becoming safe is, what are the coping mechanisms you picked up along the way? And just to look at them, really suspend judgment and just go, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then big story number 3 is sort of the why behind the what. And that's where we go into the childhood. And for me, that was my parents' divorce when I was 4. And divorce has become much more of a common thing for people. And yet, just because it's common doesn't mean that the soul of a child isn't really racked by that experience. It can be, especially at such a young age, but really at any age, it can be a real shaking of the safe place. There's our safe word again. Even if the home life wasn't very literally safe, which mine was, it wasn't a volatile home. But even if it were, there's a sense of that's all we know as a child. And so even when those things break, and maybe even for the good, that sense of, oh my gosh, what I thought was isn't. And now what is going to happen to me? And this is where we often build these beliefs, or we take them into ourselves, about ourselves and about the world around us. I'm not okay. I'm not enough. I'm too much. I need to be X, Y, and Z in order for this to happen or not happen, to be okay, to be safe, to have love. And those are those whys behind the what that often bring in the coping mechanism later in life, right? And then for me, the other big four was what took up most of my years of trauma within a 20-year marriage. And having all that other framework, my accident actually happened just about a year into that marriage. I was very young, 16 when I met my ex-husband and married at 18. And all the childhood traumas, all my coping mechanisms, all of his came together, and there flows the story, his story, my story, our story, 20 years, 3 children. But there was betrayal in that marriage. There was a sexual addiction that was felt in my story and in my being as an I'm not enough. I cannot satisfy this person that I have committed my entire life to. And we were in a very evangelical Christian religious upbringing and lifestyle and belief system at the time. And so there was this, there is no word as divorce, and I truly honor marriage, I do. And yet, as a young person and now as an older person, looking back in compassion on that young person, I see a lot of different options of learning. So that fourth of the big four traumas is sort of the things that happen to us in life that become, this is who I am, this is my story, as opposed to this is part of my story. And this perhaps is even showing up for me if I choose, coming back to that song, life's gonna go, life's a story, it's a script, it's a song, I've got that pen, and there's some things I can change and there's other things I can't, but I can choose how I show up. And so that's, to me, the big thing that comes out of that fourth story is I can't control anyone else. I'm the captain of my own ship, and I want to take full authority and full responsibility for this vessel, who I am, who I'm becoming, and the choices I make. And there's going to be repercussions, there's going to be ripples, and I can show up for those too.
Man, every one of those had their own level of emotion and how I felt your story and how I related to your story. And you're right, they're, each individual traumas. I like that you explained about the near-death accident and the difference in that part of you that healed and it was acknowledged. And, when you have that, it's definitely different than, some of these other childhood traumas that we go through that aren't acknowledged, that are sometimes even swept under the rug, or you're gaslit, or you're told to get over it. And so you really struggle with acknowledging for yourself, much less having anybody else acknowledge and validate what happened to you.
Absolutely, because that is part of it, right? There are things that happened to us, that someone else made a choice and did a thing or said a thing, and it felt a certain way to us. It impacted our life. It impacted choices. It impacted how we felt. And even if we suspend blame, it still impacted us. And so there is a part of that. And it is tough when something that you have felt deeply isn't mirrored back to you or isn't validated like it was so well in my horse accident, can often, and I saw it in myself, see this in most of the women I work with that have gone through betrayal trauma of some form, that there's this sense of, oh, maybe I'm just crazy, or there's something wrong with me. And the beautiful part of that is the willingness to look and say, what part have I played in this? And yet many of us have taken on certain things that really aren't ours. Marriage has ups and downs, right? Every marriage has things to work on, but there are some issues and some choices that weren't your deal. They were this other person's choice that affected you. And finding that balance, like you said, of what happened to me, and now how can I show up so that this doesn't keep happening to me, that I don't keep living this loop and then go into victim land and set up camp there, because that's not where I want to live. And none of us do. And yet, what we do want, I think, is to be validated, to say, ooh, that really had to have been painful. Like, I just want to exhale when I hear that. Like, thank you. Maybe that's all I wanted to hear. Like, you're not crazy. You might be acting crazy because of all this stuff that's going on and all the subsequent parts of life that are interacting with it. But you are not crazy. You're actually, your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to tell you that things are not okay. And that if they continue, you aren't going to be okay. What a gift. You know, the nervous system is a gift to help us see, even when it feels like we're crazy.
Yeah. And even having just one person be able to say that, like,
Yeah.
what you went through, what you're feeling, what happened, it was real. You deserve to feel the way that you feel.
Yeah.
And just to acknowledge it versus, I had a lifetime of family that told me I just needed to get over it. I
Right.
needed to forgive, and I needed to this, and I needed to that. And for whatever reason, I was able to stand my ground. And, I acknowledged what happened to me for myself. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
need that external because I wasn't getting it from anyone. It wasn't going to happen. So I gave it to myself. I gave myself permission to stand in what happened, how I felt, how it impacted my life, and that it wasn't my job to forgive and go back,
Right.
forgive and move on. So I think if you can have that validation, that's wonderful and beautiful and makes a huge impact.
Yeah, you brought up that big F word, forgiveness. What does it mean? And I've come to the simplicity. I love simple things. Forgiveness is an inside job. Forgiveness is untying the knot that's inside me that was caused by whatever happened. Reconciliation is different. Reconciliation doesn't always happen. That's the kind of go back, like you said, forgive and go back into. Sometimes there's a forgiveness, the untying of the hurt, and there's an ability to reconcile a relationship. And other times there's not a reconciliation. And yet we can have forgiveness, which is not letting this person off the hook for the thing they did to you, but it's saying, I'm going to untie that painful knot in me so that I can be free to walk and live and no longer have that pain be swirling around inside of me. Every time something else comes in and hits it, it's, like a wound. I have a broken pinky right now, I'm protecting it because it's only 2 weeks old. So when I bump it, it's like, ow, it really, really hurts. And that is going to happen in life. And so do I want to go around my entire life being bound up to try to keep myself from being bumped by the things in life? Or can I heal, which is going to take a little time, and then I'm going to undo this and I'm going to come back into living so that I don't have to live this protected, bubbled life. So that's the role I see forgiveness playing. And the beautiful part is I can do it regardless of what happens in that relationship and choose, like you said. Another huge piece is the self-betrayal that I think a lot of us women feel, and I'm sure men as well, when we've lived in a situation that is less than ideal for our well-being, especially the longer we've stayed in it. There's this sense of how did I allow myself to get here? When we do have that final aha moment, or what I call, my line in the sand, when I had my eyes opened and said, I'm not going around this circle again, hitting a line. When I finally drew that line, it was like, oh, there was almost this sense of, how did you let yourself come this far? And all the other statements, give up this and lose that. And boy, we can go into a downward spiral there. And at the crux of it is that piece that you mentioned. Can I hold that ground for myself and not betray myself? Because when it comes down to it, we can't rely, this is what I've found, on if my well-being has to do with everyone else treating me well enough so that I'm okay, boy, that's going to be exhausting and impossible because people are going to do what they do. But can I show up for myself? Which it sounds like you did, and I finally did. And say, yeah, I'm going to take the pieces that come, but I'm the one I can show that has the absolute authority to show up for myself and that I can truly trust Can I rebuild that trust? Because that's often the real feeling of betrayal and loss of trust is, I'm not sure I can trust me anymore. How did I get in this situation and why did I stay? That's a tough one.
It is. And I think, you know, I may have some of your insight, because you had mentioned having a religious background, and we hang on to that. Like you said, divorce was not a thing. And when my parents went through a divorce when I was little, the church really, it was almost like my brother and I as children had been the ones who had committed this sin in the church. You know, we were the ones who were really punished because, of course, we were still in school at a Catholic church and still, you know, showing up. And so then when I was in that point where I needed to make that line in the sand, you know, it was still that, do I stay because, you know, I don't want to harm my relationship with the church, or, you know, it definitely impacts a lot of our choices. And it's one of those many things that we look at when we're in that self-blame, like, why did I stay so long?
So true.
A lot of mine was also, I didn't believe I was good enough myself, that I could leave, that I could do any better than what I was in. That, I mean, the list is long.
It is. Yeah. If I can share a religious thing really quick that shifted for me, that was really important. I love the Hebrew language, and this would be a whole nother podcast. My faith journey, my spiritual journey has really shifted and grown. And I'm at a place where is very different than when I started. And I'm sure in 5 years, 10 years from now, I will keep maturing in that and growing and learning. But one of the things in parts of my journey, I really dug into the Hebrew language and started to look at some of those words, like you said, sin. And I realized the word translated as sin from Hebrew is actually an archery term that means to miss the mark. So it's like, if I'm trying to shoot a target and looking over there and I miss it, they would holler out the word sin, which doesn't mean you horrible person. It means, oh, you've missed the mark. And then the word repentance, teshuvah in Hebrew, means turn, realign, and shoot in the correct direction. What a beautiful thing. We have this definition of sin and repentance in a religious mind frame that isn't necessarily offering this grace that is also talked about in religious settings. But for me, when I redefined that, I went, oh, how else would I learn how to shoot the center of a target than to shoot and miss, to sin, in a sense, over and over, to miss that mark because I'm trying to hit it. And I love these pictures. I pictured the summer camp, because the only place I've ever shot arrows was summer camps when I was a kid. Was, okay, well, what if you had a rogue kid running around shooting arrows at the other children and trees and going crazy? That's a totally different concept. The concept that I'm attempting to shoot the target and missing, that is actually where that term sin comes. And then I can repent by turning straight and trying again. What beautiful possibilities that opens up, right? And then another beautiful piece is even that song I sang, the phrase, love always gives us a choice, was actually spoken in a church service right towards the end of my marriage. We were very involved in the church. We were leaders in the church. And the pastor that was speaking that morning was talking about love. And I would remember where I was standing in the back of this school gymnasium where we held our meetings. And he said, love always gives us a choice. And I felt the power of those words hit me with force that felt like it plastered me to the back wall. And I went, I don't think I've been choosing. I've been being chosen. I've been reacting. But have I actually paused and made a choice? And I thought, I want to not only be loved, which is to be offered a choice, but I want to love others and myself. And I've even incorporated that in my horse training. I offer my horses a choice. They don't have to do what I tell them to do. That's not love. And that's not love for myself. I'm offering that choice and inquiring. So all of those things tie together. It's really a beautiful piece to reframe sometimes the things that have at one point limited us and brought, like you said, a thought, I can't ever be good enough. Sometimes if we just shift the frame, the whole picture changes for us.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I can see how all of that connects in how you work with your clients and the horses and what you do, because you have such a different layer that you bring to that understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That was beautiful.
Absolutely.
You created Becoming Safe as both a course and a community, which is beautiful. What was the spark for building this, and what happens inside the space?
Yeah, the spark was what I already alluded to when I had this resurfacing of my own trauma, which happened in 2021, which is not that long ago. We're recording here in 2025, so about 4.5 years ago. And I was actually in Colorado, which is where I grew up most of my life, at my mom's house, my mom and my stepdad. And I was there for my oldest daughter's wedding, which was where I lived in that house getting ready for my marriage to her father. And you can imagine people that have been through traumatic resurfacing. There was so many triggers, and I ended up in full-blown panic attacks. The whole gamut started to come up, and I was sitting on the front step of my mom's house going, oh my gosh, what is happening to me? And the amazing thing was those big 4 things we talked about were healed in my life. My leg was healed. My whole horse training career happened after that. I had healed my relationship with food and my body. I was very well. I'm a nutritionist. I learned and grew. I had done so much work in my relationship with my parents. So through the divorce, inner healing, and I had been out of the marriage where there had been betrayal for over 10 years at that point, remarried in a beautiful, trusting relationship. And I thought, why is this coming up now? And when I started to look at my songs, because I've always been a songwriter since I was young, I come from a musical family, and I started looking at my songs and realized I had been chronicling my own healing journey as the counselor and the client. I saw the voice of both in my songs. This wisdom that I began to think, gosh, did I say that? Where did that come from? I was receiving it. And then these really heart-wrenching questions that were coming. It was almost like a conversation. And as I began to dig into my own healing, like you did, and started to study like what's really happening in my body and why, and how can I be well? Like I'm really ready to be well. I said, okay, how can I share these songs and the stories behind them in this new era of music where people aren't buying CDs? And so I created this platform and called it Becoming Safe, which started as just being a place to share my songs and the stories. And then as I was learning, I thought, well, I've got to share about the nervous system because it's everything. I hadn't attended to my body. I love to learn. So I was reading books and podcasts and studying and doing all this stuff up here. And I had been all through my divorce, all through my previous marriage. I'm one of those people that's very committed to my own personal growth, but I had neglected my body. And so when I started to understand the nervous system, I knew I had to get into Becoming Safe. And so that became a foundational part in the beginning. The course is divided up with the nervous system, and then my big 4 stories with these questions that dig into the generalization and each person's traumas themselves so they can journal through it. And then I have this whole section where I'll have a song, like We All Choose is the first song. And I tell the story behind the song, and I give a transformation tool that's connected to each song. And then there's a resource section for those that want to nerd out like I did and dig into all the same books and podcasts and things. I tell them where I got my information from. And the reason why it's a community and not just a course, I didn't want the course to be another pressure that we needed in life. Like, I've got to do all these things. It is self-paced. It doesn't expire. I created it as a pay what you can. I did not want any woman that needed this resource to not be able to access it. And I knew that because of these soul wounds happen in relationship, that at some point we need to heal relationship. And while this one first, the one with myself, I've got to become safe in here. And then for me, what I call the spiritual connection, whatever that is for you, this healing kind of has to happen first. But it's so that we can show up in this world and relate like you and I are and all the people. And there needed to be a safe place for that. So I created that as part of Becoming Safe, was this community. And we have a private Facebook page, And we have group Zooms. And I just did our very first in-person retreat in April, which was 11 of us from all over the country, one from outside of the country. And we had the most amazing time. And there was so much healing in those 4 days together. Talk about community and witnessing each other's stories and laughing and crying and doing the exercises together that was so transformative. I realized that the community aspect of healing, we can't just learn it here. In the doing is the learning, in the being is the becoming, and in relating is where we really heal those relational wounds.
Man, what a great way to put that together, so that, I'm like you, I'm a learner. When I am in crisis or when I am seeking, I throw myself 100% into education. But I'm a learner in the sense that I learn and do at the same time. I don't
Beautiful.
take a class or a mastermind and take notes and put it in a binder and put it away. I put it into action immediately and do the work and, either check off the thing I needed to accomplish or, figure out what I need to do next. What is my next path? It's not just something simple. It's always this giant learning adventure that I get to go on. And because of that, and the healing that I was doing and the learning all these different modalities, then became the need to share it. And that's what went into, okay, so now I want to be a coach so that I can help other women, because women are also who I work with. I work with GenX women who have given their whole life to taking care of everyone else and forgetting to take care of themselves, or not knowing that we should be taking care of ourselves. And so I wanted to share the tools that I learned with them so that they also had the tools in their toolbox that they could pull out at any time. I don't just bring in clients and go through a specific formula or specific steps. We look at each person individually and what they need at that time. And then we work with the tools. And I explain that, if you hired me to come and remodel a room in your house and I only showed up with a hammer, I can only fix so much. But when we're together, I'm bringing all my tools and we're going to go through each tool, and so that you can figure out which of the tools work best for you in your situation, so that you always have them in your toolbox and you get to keep them. And
that's so empowering, right? You're not creating people that are addicted to you. You're really truly empowering them to show up for themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of that baby bird scenario. I want to give you what you need to move forward in life.
Right.
And to do that with all of your new choices and your new vision and your new strength and your new safety and all of those things. And I loved having a community. For 3 years, I leased an office and had a weekly women's circle. And that was just amazing on so many levels, because I had women who had found my circle on an event platform who had just moved into our state and who wanted community. That's what they were seeking. They were seeking community with other women.
Nice.
And I'd get a notification that somebody bought a ticket and was going to come to my community. And they stayed and we grew together. And we had such a broad range of ages and experiences that we all got to learn from each other and support each other and share in things.
Yes.
It was such an amazing way to connect and help people grow and let them be seen and heard. And I had a woman who showed up for just one time, but she left me the most amazing review because
That's
of what
awesome.
that community did for her in those 2 hours.
That's
Just
so beautiful.
because, yeah, people listened to her. They saw her. They didn't judge her for something she'd been judging herself for so many years.
Mm.
They accepted her. They welcomed her. They wanted her to come back.
Yeah,
It's so powerful. And
it
I,
is. Yeah, yeah. What a great, I love that too, because one time, we realize that there's nothing wrong with a short-term relationship too. She got what she needed, was so grateful and went on. And who knows how many other people in her life she's impacted and how much her life has been impacted and all of you that were there. And how beautiful when we can hold that as just as sacred as the lifetime friendships. They're different, but just as sacred. And you used the word connection, which is one of my favorite words too, because I think trauma is a disconnect. Trauma is a severing of the connection, even in the way our brain works, why we have that muddy brain. I can't remember things. And so healing is about reconnecting. I love the word remember, bring back together. All these parts of us comes back to an earlier, what we were talking about, these parts that we have exiled in rooms and shut out and locked off. Well, we can bring back those pieces like you did with those women in the women's circle. You brought together these pieces and parts of a whole. We can do that same work. We can have a women's circle right inside of our own vessel. How beautiful is that?
yeah, it was something I, was honored to hold that space,
Yeah,
for,
that's neat.
and just the relationships that I built through that
Yeah.
were amazing. And,
It's nice to not have to explain yourself, right? When you're with a group that you say it and they, oh, I got that. I know what you're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did a lot of that. Even, the huge age differences just didn't matter. It was like there wasn't age or race or any of that. And none of that came in the door when you came in my door. You came in as a
Awesome.
woman who was there
Beautiful.
to be seen, to be heard, and to share and to connect. And we did that.
That's
And
awesome.
I miss it. I miss my
Oh,
ladies. So we
yeah.
connect in different ways now, but we still connect.
Nice.
So let's shift a little to your music. As a singer and songwriter, uh, I'm glad that everyone got to experience early in this conversation how much beauty and energy and heart and your story is in every word that you shared with us. How does music support emotional and nervous system healing? And do you have a favorite song that you have written that has come from a soul wound?
Yeah. Well, how does music support that? I think one of the most amazing things, and I do hope that maybe listeners got this from starting with that song, and I love that we started with it. So much can be said in a 4-minute song and felt, because it's not just words, melody and and dynamics, loud and soft, and intonation. And even one of the things I've come to embrace about my own voice is the imperfections in my voice. I was a vocal major when I was young, and I tried so hard to be perfect. I was learning, classical singing, and it was so intimidating and difficult, and I had so much strain on my vocal cords. And later in life, I have found all these different colors and frailties and fractured parts where my voice might crack, and it actually is the part that brings the beauty as opposed to the perfection. And so I think in hearing a song, all of us, I'm certain, could jump in and say, oh my gosh, there is a song that changed my life, or that I can play over and over, and it just speaks to my soul. And I think that's what music does, is it goes in a way that just words or just pictures or stories or teachings don't go in. Stories go in also. So when a song is the story, it really goes in. So I think that's one of the things is we can feel it. And in healing the nervous system, we need to feel. And many of us have isolated ourselves. We're afraid of our feelings for a good reason. We don't have those tools. I know I lacked a lot of tools. So I had the coping mechanisms, right? Until I got tools and didn't need those coping mechanisms. The coping mechanisms can fall away. It's like trimming, a tree. If I'm just constantly trimming the leaves, I'm trying to fix the problems in life. But if I can go to that root system, and I think music has a way of going right down into the core and getting to our limiting beliefs, getting to the emotional current underneath the pain. So we're not stuck in the story. And one of my favorite songs, I looked through my songs and I was like, do I have a favorite? And at different times in my life, they've been different favorites. But the one I want to highlight in that is a song that I wrote for my girls. I have 3 girls. I have 3 stepchildren as well. But this one was particularly written for my 3 girls. Because one of the hard things about making these line in the sand big decisions for our own well-being when we're mamas and when we have children is we get that the ripples are going to affect our children. And I don't know about you, and I imagine you and our listeners have gone, oh, that's what has kept me stuck for so long, is I'm so afraid of how this is going to impact my children. And I just want to protect them. I don't want them to go through, for me, I don't want my children to go through a divorce. That was one of my big 4 stories, right? My parents' divorce. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to let my children go through that. And when I was faced with it, it was like, oh my gosh, the one thing I just wasn't going to let happen. And here I am, and I knew to be okay, to even be well, because of the massive impact it had had on my body, the years of sustaining the relationship that I had been in, I was falling apart, and I wasn't going to be an okay, well person. And so the song is called Come Back, and I wrote it to my girls, and it's kind of a double meaning. And it starts by saying, I had to go away for just a little while, though I was never really gone. And then the end line in the chorus is, I had to go away so I could come back. And I think we get without, there's a picture of why songs are so powerful. We could do an hour-long teaching of, well, we've got to find ourselves and become authentic and heal our wounds so that we can show up in life. And even just saying the lyric, now imagine it being sung and the emotion behind it, which you can hear it. That's one of the songs on Becoming Safe, and hear the story, the longer story behind it. We just kind of exhale and go, yeah, I did. I had to take those steps. That's that part, another verse. I had to take a step on the path I chose to choose. And those words were important for me because I wanted this concept of I had to take this step. It was clear to me that I wasn't going to survive if I didn't. But I also wanted to highlight that I did choose it. I wasn't a victim. So I had to take a step on the path I chose to choose, knowing it would change you too. And that was a hard step. So the thing I love about this song is I feel it. When I sing it, I feel compassion for me, the woman, the child that went through what I went through. And I feel so much compassion for my girls because I know that my choices impacted them in ways I wished that they would never have to feel. And yet, one of the things I said to them through all of the things in life is I said, at the time, this was my language, God, there are no casualties in God's economy. In the spiritual realm, there are no casualties. What's right for me doesn't mean, well, darn it, that sucks for you. It's like, no, this is your story too. It's not mine only. This is our story, and we're going to walk through it together. And that wasn't always beautiful. It wasn't always good. It wasn't always kind. There's so many things I would go back and change. And yet where I came to is I came back, and I am showing up as who I am, as the woman that I know my girls can look up to and admire, and the woman that I know I always knew I am and was. But for a time, I didn't have the capacity to show up. And then their story too. There was a time when all 3 of my girls sort of pushed away a little bit from me, and that was painful. But I also knew that they had to so that they could come back to a healthy relationship.
Thank you. We had this conversation before we started. So thank you again for sharing a little more of that. And I look forward to finding that song and listening to it and listening to the story. That may be part of my healing this afternoon. So thank you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, music for me, as I've talked to you before, music has definitely been my saving grace my entire life. Through my childhood, it was the one place I could go in myself, in my headphones, and be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And my favorite band, who I recently got to go see down in Lubbock, They're a Texas band called Blue October.
I
And
love Blue October. I do, yes. Amazing story and emotion and voice.
yep,
Amazing.
they have been my band, God, going back to, I want to say like 2003, 2004. And we got the opportunity to go down to Lubbock. They're doing kind of a different tour situation now where they're touring for each album as they released it. And they're playing
Mm.
at the places where they toured when they released it.
Oh, wow. How cool.
And it was amazing. It was a 24 song set list. And I don't think they
Wow.
took a breath one in between,
Mm.
and it was just so powerful. And the place that it was like the Buddy Holly Hall, which
Okay.
is this amazing 5-story auditorium. Just, oh my God, it just made it so much more impactful and empowering.
Sounds epic. Oh,
And
I'm gonna have to look up this tour now. Yes.
I could probably, tell you about a couple of songs that had those feelings, but
Hmm.
and how I
Yeah.
related to them during different parts of my life based on his story, like what he was going through
Mm.
with losing his daughter and seeing his love for his daughter through his music,
Yeah.
and thinking, how can one man have a heart that big and another man not want their child at all?
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And so, just I needed it at the time to hang on, that there was more, that there are
Yeah.
people out there.
With a heart like that. Yeah. That big heart capacity, when we have that capacity to love, we have a huge capacity to hurt. And it's amazing to open ourselves to that. It was actually my husband, Joel, now is the one who introduced me to Blue October. And Blue October he had one particular CD that he played that was his repeat CD. And he would work out through his painful previous relationship and divorce. And those were those stories and that voice and that message that carried him through. So when he and I got back together, we knew each other as teenagers. He played that for me. And I was like, how have I never heard this music? This is amazing. So yeah, there's another example of how, music carried another soul. Really beautiful.
My favorite song by far, which is more recent than the rest, but is Fear. So I want to throw it out there for people to go and
To
listen
listen to.
and listen to his story. And I love it. So thank
Yeah.
you. Let's talk about your somatic breath work. I want to thank you again for inviting me into a session with you. It was absolutely powerful, and it was exactly what I needed.
Awesome.
So as a certified breathwork practitioner, what makes breathwork such a powerful tool for releasing trauma?
Yeah, well, breath in and of itself is so phenomenal because we're breathing all the time, right? Hopefully, we've been breathing through this whole time talking together, and everyone out there that's listening, I hope you're breathing too. And breath connects our conscious and unconscious mind. It's something that's happening whether I think about it or not, and yet there I go. I just held my breath, or I can purposefully do things with my breath. I can't do that with my heart. My heart's beating, but I can't just stop it right now. But breath I can. So to me, breath is the connector between the conscious and the unconscious. So that in and of itself carries so much power. And coming back to my love of the Hebrew language, the word that's translated as spirit is actually ruach in Hebrew, and it literally means breath. That's how it should be translated. If it were to be translated literally, would be breath. So we're breathing the spirit. Think of the word inspiration, in spirit, in breath, respirate. I am re-spiriting. I am re-breathing. It's in all of these words. So I came across the power of the breath consciously early on in my healing, just for regulation, just realizing even that we hold our breath in a tense and high place through stressful situations. So just relaxing and releasing and breathing through a traumatic or difficult situation can keep it from locking in our body. What I've recently come to discover through my training as a somatic breathwork practitioner is we can use the breath in an even more powerful way to go in there and release those stuck traumas and energies that we've accumulated. And we do that by actually tapping into the the fight or flight, right? Where we actually do some mouth breathing, breathing into our belly and even up into our chest, expanding and sort of activating the system when we're not in a traumatic situation, using some breath holds to physiologically bring in the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which shifts how our brain works, and then repatterning in the parasympathetic through switching to nasal breathing. And through all of that, we have this ability to release what's been stuck. Sometimes big emotions will come up or physical movements. We see this with the animals, with my work with horses, when they have been really afraid of something, they're going to stop and their eyes are going to bug out of their head and their breath is going to hold. And then horses will snort. They'll have this like, snorting sound. And when they relax, they do one of my favorite sounds. They go, and the horses that I work with regularly will pattern with me. I can get them and we'll echo back and forth that kind of a sound. So all of that to say it's happening in the design of nature. And because we're cerebral beings, we can purposely choose to use this, if we learn some techniques, to go in with our breath and sort of use the breath to clear out all these places and then bring back in how we do want to feel and show up. And the one thing I love the most about it is this concept that whatever it is I feel I don't have, let's say I'm really wanting peace in my life and I'm feeling like there's a lot of chaos and lack of clarity. There's this tendency to think that clarity and peace are out there somewhere, and I need to go get them and bring them in because I don't have them. The concept that I use in the modality with this breath work is that is who you are. Your nature is peace and clarity, but all these things in life have come on top of them. And we're going to use, we're going to use the breath to clear those things away so that your true beautiful nature can come forth. And then we're going to spend that second half of the breath breathing into that pattern so that it becomes the felt sensation. That our body goes, oh, I know what peace now feels like. I know what clarity feels like. I've been living from this place of being covered over with this junk, but underneath, I have a song called Underneath that also is one of my favorites. Underneath all this, I know that I am beautiful underneath it all. And that beautiful me gets to come out. And then I use the breath to really pattern it into my being so that when something actually does happen or a to me trauma happens, I have access to that sense and my body goes, wait, I know how to feel differently. I know how to feel better and I'm going to access it. So powerful because it's long term. For myself and the people I've started working with, the changes that I have felt, the clearing and the repatterning that I've gotten my own breath work, it's permanent. It seems like if it comes up again, it's another layer. I'm not looping anymore. And that's what I'm beginning to see with the women and men. I've also worked with a mixed group in the breath work. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it really was for me when I was experiencing the both halves, like you were talking about the first half and then the second half. The first half was fairly new to my body and my experience. But once we were in the second half, I felt that homecoming to what I already knew.
Yeah.
Because as a meditator, I had learned a lot of those tools. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about. That is another tool that is in my toolbox that goes with me wherever I go. It can be with me in my car. It can be with me if I'm standing in line at a grocery store. I can breathe.
Yeah.
And I can adjust what my body is feeling. And I can come to my own safety when I need it.
That's so important. Yeah, that to realize it. I love how you said that. It's with me all the time. My breath is here, kind of like the song. When I realize it, love is always been here. I've never not had it, and I can do that. And even just if I'm, like you said, in the grocery store and I'm stressed out, if I just take a breath in and then a long exhale, I mean, already, like that feels so good. But you're right. A lot of us don't ever think to, why would I ever want to up my breath and activate my nervous system? And that's this part of breath work that some people don't know about. We kind of know these calming breaths and the meditative breath, but to say, wow, I can actually use my breath per chunk, so I don't have to be activated in the moment when I don't have access to my thinking brain. You know, when I get triggered either into my survival brain or that limbic emotional brain, and what do? I run a pattern, and then when it's over, I go, why did I do that again? Why did I say that again? Because we weren't in learning mode in that what I call 4 to 7 in a 10-point scale of our regulation. When we practice tapping up to that 8 or 9, and then coming back, we're teaching the system that you can, like you said, I can always access calm. I am not a victim of what's happening around me. I am running my own ship, and that doesn't mean I'm using any kind of a bypass, a mental bypass, a spiritual bypass, a positive thinking, I'm okay. I truly can be okay with whatever is going on and show up. It's not that I become passive, which I think a lot of people worry about. Well, if I just accept life, won't I just float around and do nothing? No, you'll do it from a regulated standpoint. You'll do it from a thinking standpoint and a choose instead of react and run a pattern.
Yeah, from an intentional place.
Yes, purposeful, intentional.
Yep.
And that's so powerful. That's when we show up for ourselves and we build that trust. Oh, I don't have to just be a rabbit in a wheel running this. I can actually choose how I want to interact based on my values and based on what feels good in my body. And I am beautiful. I am beautiful. And I can show up as that beautiful soul in every situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really amazing tool that like I said, I've taken it with me everywhere. And when those triggers, come up and you think you're healed or you think you're better and you use the tools and then years later they show up again to surprise you. When you have those tools and you have the ability to know which tools work best for you at certain moments, because I have different tools that work for different things for sure.
Definitely.
Breath has been one kind of constant, and just being able to breathe slow enough to acknowledge that I have went from what my brain thought was an unsafe situation to what my body knows is a safe situation.
Yeah.
And I had an experience where I had went towards to my office to go to work. And for the first time since moving into that space, I encountered my ex-husband's truck in the parking lot. And of course, my mind automatically went to, he's found me. He knows where I work. He knows where I am. He's going to be sitting in there waiting for me. What am I going to do? And I chose not to engage. I chose not to put myself in an unsafe situation. And I drove home, and luckily I only lived like 4 blocks from the office that I was leasing. And I came into my house and I locked the door and I sat on my couch and I took a few deep breaths and I reminded myself that I was safe. I was in my safe space. He wasn't knocking on my door. He wasn't following me. He didn't know where I lived. So to be able to access those tools when we need them.
Yeah. And I love the order of which you did that. You didn't put yourself into what felt unsafe and then tell yourself you were safe. You put yourself back where you felt safe and then did the talking. I'm safe. That is so key right there.
Yeah. And I've had that a couple of times, and I just really love acknowledging how that works for myself.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I really can open my bag and it's right there.
Yeah.
And I can do this whenever I need to, and I can feel safe. And, it is It is just powerful. And that's why I love, what I do and what you do, and why we are all, doing this is to help people access those tools, know they're
Yeah.
available, know they are not alone, know that you are not stuck in these situations, know that there is choice.
Yes.
And, you know, it, each piece is something that we need to learn for ourselves and experience for ourselves. But I think once we do, and we have that ability to share that with others,
Mm-hmm.
that is the greatest thing we can do.
Yeah.
Is to share those tools to help empower others to find the tools that work for them.
Yeah. I love that and totally feel it too. I think that's an intricate part of our own healing. It's like a phase, almost like the phases of grief. Phase of healing is when we're able to share, because this horizontal. I kind of use my hands for people that aren't seeing us and just hearing us. This vertical connection with spirit, ruach breath, this circular connecting inside of me, and then this outward flow with other people. And those two words, choice and safety, are completely entwined. There's got to be choice. We've got to see that. Otherwise, if I don't have choice, I'm really not going to have the ability to feel safe. And that's really, really powerful when those two can come together with the tools. Like you said, not only do I have choice, but I have the tools to choose from that actually work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of went into one of the next topics that I wanted to talk about. And we definitely talked about one of the best tools, but why is it so hard for many women to feel safe again after
Mm-hmm.
betrayal? And what are some of the first steps towards rebuilding that inner safety?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why it's so hard to feel safe again, it comes back to that concept of self-betrayal a little bit, actually a lot of it. When we have this thought that I chose this, how did I not see this? How did I stay so long? There's this sense of, well, where do I go? There is no safe place. And the betrayal in the first part is that feeling we've let our guard down. Oh, this is my person. This is the person, whether that's a husband or wife, a parent, or a sibling, or a best friend. Typically, betrayal happens, it could be even a work partner, somebody with whom there has been this really giving over of quite a bit of trust. And we really have let down some guard. I can be myself. I can be the parts of me that are a little ugly or a little silly or a little embarrassing because I'm safe. I believe I'm safe. And when we have this reality blow, oh my gosh, you did what? And that can also be from us. But that initial betrayal, that is, I think, the blow that often shows up in physical symptoms. For me, it was like, we hear this thing like it was like a punch in the gut or a stab in the chest. Shortly after.
Okay, we're back.
Back.
Technology.
I'm not sure where we went out, but if you know, cue me in and I'll jump back in where we were.
You were talking about betrayal trauma happening even in like a work situation where you have felt you were safe, you have
Yeah.
disclosed things, and then to be punched in the gut, that's kind of where you
Yeah.
are at that feeling.
Okay. Yeah. So feeling that sense of why this is so hard is because we've given over such amount of trust to this person that we really thought we were safe. We really thought I've found my person, whether that's work or family or marriage or friendship. And then to have it be that person that either didn't have our back when we thought they would, or actually to cause the wound, to do something that was like that stab in the gut. And if I'm repeating this part, we'll just say it. I don't think I had come to this when it cut off, but I was diagnosed with IBS within a matter of months of my first marriage, finding out that what was going on in his choices and in his sexual addiction. And that's that like punch in the gut, this inflammation of, I cannot even trust my own gut. Like I knew this. Didn't I know this? Why did I blow past it? and this like inflammation. So I think that our bodies really are holding so many answers, which comes back to the breath too. When we do breath work, we access the innate wisdom that's in us. But why this betrayal trauma is so hard for women to heal from is because there's this sense of, well, if I can't trust him, if I can't trust her, if I can't trust that person, who can I trust? And then the one that we need to turn to in that moment would go, well, I can't trust her either because she got me in this situation, pointing to myself. I chose to marry this person. Why did I make that choice? I knew there was this problem. Why didn't I listen to my gut when it said, no, this isn't right? Wait, whatever that word, those little voices that we blew past in life. And then if we have been in a relationship that's been unhealthy for a number of years, there's this sense of, why didn't I leave? Why didn't I make a different choice? Now I'm here. Now I have children. Now we have years and years and friends, and it only gets harder and harder. So that is a really, really tough space. So the first step that I would say for women for rebuilding this inner safety is to just recognize that and to just have compassion and say, oh, that's tough. Who can you turn to? Can you take a step to rebuild the safety within you? And this might sound like a shameful plug. It is shameless in the sense that I would love to say also a first step you can do is to join something like Becoming Safe. And I can say it shamelessly because I've set it up with that there is no financial obligation. You can contribute or you cannot. You can join the group because I didn't want any woman who needed this to not have access, because sometimes we're at this point when we recognize, oh my gosh, who can I trust, that we feel really alone. And you mentioned community, and there's this sense of, I don't even know if I can trust my own self. I'm maybe getting this eye-opening moment of my relationship's not healthy. And then we go, okay, I need to do something. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know where to start. I don't have a tool in my toolbox. I don't even know what a toolbox looks like. That's that sense of complete confusion that many of us feel. So if it's accessible to join something, I invite every single one to check out Becoming Safe. If there's something else or a group like you mentioned, a women's circle. The tough part about some of those is that like 12-step groups or something is there's this sense of I've got to actually go there. And that can feel really unsafe. So it's something that you can do. It's okay to pull back. It's okay to say, I'm going to need to take some rebuilding. One of my other songs is called My Own Best Friend. And I love that song too, because we've often heard the phrase, I'm my own worst enemy. And I thought, well, if I can be my own worst enemy, can't I also be my own best friend? And to be able to look at the places where I didn't show up for myself and some of our regrets, when we look back, hindsight's easy, right? 2020, I can look back and go, oh, I should have done that, shouldn't have done that. And it's not supposed to be used as a weapon to beat ourselves up, but a tool for going forward. So we can access that and say, okay, let me look back and now say, well, I know clearly what I would have done if I could go back there. Can I start showing up right now as what I would have done? And that happened for me. I was 38 when I decided to step out of my marriage. I had been 18 when I got married. So I saw myself as that 38-year-old woman thinking, what would I say to my 18-year-old self? And it was so clear. And I thought, I don't want to be 58 looking back at my 38-year-old self who's so confused right now and trying to figure out what to do, and having that 58-year-old self going, oh, honey, it's actually a lot clearer. I thought, it's the same thing I would tell my 18-year-old self. I can tell myself right now, and I can trust and take a little step, take that one step and breathe through it. There's a thing you can do right now. Any ladies, men listening right now, take a breath. Feel it inside of you, hold it for a minute, and then let it go. I mean, that is one first step to say, I just trusted myself to breathe me and hold me and release me. You just took a tiny step into trusting yourself.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That is definitely a wonderful tool, some wonderful tools, showing our self-compassion. Thinking about what you would say to your younger self, that is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's powerful in our healing. It's powerful if you're an entrepreneur in your entrepreneur journey. It's powerful if you're wanting to change careers or leave a relationship, or,
Yeah.
if you can find a way to, that is your clarity. That will give you more
Yeah.
clarity, I think, than a lot of things, is to just say, what would I tell myself?
Yeah. And
And
can
not,
I make a little,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No,
Okay.
no, go ahead, please.
I want to make one little comment on that because my own inner, call it inner critic or inner defensiveness, I know is probably popping up for a lot of people right now. And there's this sense of going, oh yeah, that's a great tool. And yet many of us, especially if we've been in, let's say the same situation, we went through a marriage, now we have children, we're having to leave a marriage. And the children are a big piece of this. And so there's this thought of, yes, that I would tell that younger self, don't do it, don't get married. Well, what's the implication? Well, I wouldn't have these 3 beautiful girls. So jumps in this voice of, well, but then you would throw all this away. Absolutely. Not saying that, oh, yes, that would be better. I'm taking the advice that I would have given that 18-year-old, not with a shoulda, coulda, and all the bypasses, but saying, now the players in the story have changed. Back then it was oh, but my mom already put a deposit on the wedding venue and we bought the dress and my aunt has bought her plane ticket. All these people I was going to disappoint, that my 38-year-old self would say to the 18-year-old self, they're going to be okay. Yeah, they might be out a little bit of money or a little put off or surprised. So now the players are my children. So I'm not saying, oh yes, I would do that and not have all the beautiful experiences that I've had in these 20 years. I'm not saying these aren't absolutely perfect. There is a perfection. I hold to the possibility of the perfection of everything. So in that, I can still say, the players have changed. Yeah, some people are going to be disappointed. Some people are going to be hurt. There's going to be some financial repercussions. So it's a different roles, a little bit different stakes, a little higher, but same kind of conversation. So I just wanted to throw that in there because sometimes people can think, yeah, but the yeah, buts that come up in us. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that can be, we can beat ourselves up because, and like my own children, I would never want them to hear me say that and to think, so what are you saying? Your life would have been better without me? No, my life is perfect. I'm just using the gift of hindsight for who I am right here and right now so that I can make better choices and not be going backward 20 years from now. So just thought I would throw that little bit of clarity to ease anyone that's jumping up in the class with their hand.
No, absolutely. And we do that in many situations. And yeah, I would never, ever want my kids to hear me say, oh, I wish I hadn't done this, or,
Yeah.
I wish I'd made better choices, because then it would have taken them completely out of the timeline. And I would never have wanted to do
Right.
that, for them to feel that I felt that way, that I wish I made a different choice.
Exactly.
Because my children were never a choice. They were
right.
who I was supposed to bring into this world.
Yeah. A gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How does, and I want to, because you have so many specialties in your wonderful life toolbox, how does nutrition and embodiment practices support the healing of betrayal trauma, especially when those wounds feel invisible but are so overwhelming?
Excuse me. Well, even the giant jug of water that I'm drinking that's full of minerals, our bodies really bear the brunt of our emotions and the traumas. And so we can become imbalanced in our physical bodies. Our hormones get completely out of whack during these times. The panic attacks I talked about, those don't just stop overnight. The effects of cortisol and adrenaline in our system and lack of sleep, this takes a toll on our bodies. And so that's one area we can start to show up in and get educated about and start to say, how can I be my own best friend in taking care of my body? And some of us in these wake-ups, we go, oh my gosh, I have put myself, you mentioned this about the women that you work with. I've been so worried about everybody else and taking care of them that I haven't taken care of myself. And we can sometimes think, well, I'm good at taking care of everyone else, but I'm not good at taking care of me. And what I try to do there is take off the everyone else and the me. I'm really good at taking care of. I'm good at taking care. Oh, I'm really good at taking care. I just get to now do it here. So it's not that I'm bad at it. I just haven't applied it here. So if I can think I'm actually really good at taking care, now I get to use it for me. So we can do that with nutrition. And that to me is also what these embodiment practices is saying, I'm going to start taking care of this vessel, because this is the till death do us part. Literally, think about your marriage vows. That was a big one for me in ending my marriage, but I took a vow. I took a vow till death do us part. I didn't take that lightly. I thought, oh my gosh, how do we know, that 16-year-old girl and 18-year-old girl that made these vows and promises, does she really know what she was getting into? And does that mean that if someone else makes choices, that then nope, I made a choice when I was 18, so I have to stick by that based on what someone else has done? It doesn't make a lot of sense. But if I take those same words, this is a tool I love. Try writing your own marriage vows to yourself. Till death do us part, literally. Hey, Stace, till death do us part, it's you and me, kiddo. I'm here for you in sickness, in health, no matter what, I'm going to show up for you, and start to show up for ourselves, and to say, this is the one person I truly can say I am literally connected to until death do us part. And that's about being in this vessel, embodied. That breath is literally coming in, filling up this vessel and going out. This is my vessel of receiving and giving throughout life. And can I do both? Can I give and can I receive? And can I keep that flow going? And you mentioned in there, when our wounds feel invisible and overwhelming. I mean, it seems kind of crazy that those two words could go together, because invisible sounds like, well, if I can't see it, how would it be overwhelming? But sometimes those are the ones because we can't name it. If you could see right now, I have a lot of scars on my leg from my accident. They're very visible, but they're not terribly overwhelming, other than, I don't look as cute in a skirt as I did before my accident, but I call it my designer leg. I've embraced those scars. But some of the scars we don't see, and we just feel them. And that can often feel overwhelming. And that's why I love this 10-point scale. This is a tool I use. And I use it with my horses too, that 4 to 7 is what I call the calm alert. This is where we learn, and when we can show up and make choices. Choices are available to us when we're in that range. 8 to 10 is the stress response, and that is also needed. If something were to happen right now, a big storm, and I needed to run to the basement, I need my adrenaline to come up so I can say, Leann, I'll catch you later. I'm, running. I need that adrenaline. And then I need to feel safe and come back down. What happens often with those of us is we're living in the 8 to 10. We're living in the stress response. So then one thing happens and boom, I'm overwhelmed. And it can be small, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. And then we also feel crazy and silly, because why am I overreacting? Why am I acting this crazy way? It's just this, it's just that. But it's not. It's the accumulation and the fact that I've become accustomed to living in 8 to 10, that 4 to 7 doesn't even feel safe. I feel like, when's the shoe going to drop? So what happens then that we don't often realize, and I love this model of looking at it, is that's the stress response 8 to 10. But when I go over the 10, I crash down into the 0 to 3. And that's the trauma response. That's when we shut down, or we go into a functional freeze. The shutdown looks like, I'm checked out, I'm not showing up, I'm in a severe depression, I'm not going to work, I'm not showing up for my kids. But if I have the values to say, or force myself, I'm going to get up and go to work or show up for my kids, I'm living in a functional freeze. I'm completely shut down. So there's that invisible word you said, but I'm totally overwhelmed because I went over that 10 and I'm living in the 0 to 3, but then I'm ping-ponging because I get enough energy, or I even get enough calm. Let's say the shutdown is helping me, so I do flop on the couch and veg watch, hours of TV, and my body starts to relax. Then guess what shows up? Not the 4 to 7. When you're in a 0 to 3, you don't warm up into a 4 to 7. You wake up in a 10. You wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, and you hit the stress. Well, then that stress starts running you, and you ping over the top again, back into the freeze. And how many of us are living in that ping pong match of stress response, trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, and shut down, back and forth? what I hope to say is if we can become aware when we're in the 8 to 10, gain these tools and start to learn how to come back down, because we need the 8 to 10, but we don't need to go over the 10. When we find ourselves there, this is maybe one of the most helpful things I learned is you're going to wake up in a 10, in an 8 to 10. You're going to wake up into the stress response and you're going to need support. Stress response needs support. The trauma response needs safety. The trauma response is kind of coming from that brainstem that says, am I safe? It's survival brain. But when we ping back up into the stress response of the emotional system, we're looking for support. Am I loved? Am I supported? Do I have what I need to actually be okay? And there's the tools, right? To say, all right, now I want to start to ebb down. Can I start to live maybe in an 8 instead of a 9? And then can I start to pull into that 7? And can I start to find even my own being, when I said that, did a spontaneous inhale, exhale. My body knows that language now, and horses do it all the time. I don't ever force a horse. If I see them going in an 8 to 10, I don't keep adding pressure. That's when I go, oh, we're not going to learn. Let's come back in our 4 to 7, and they'll usually drop their head and lick and chew. Horses chew. That's the digestion response. Then we can learn something. Otherwise, I'm going to put them right into a trauma response, and that's what we do to ourselves. And life is doing it to us. We live in a stressful world. There's a lot coming at us all the time. So these tools are really important. But I love that 10-point scale because just noticing, oh, and now my husband Joel and I have this language. If I'm getting triggered about something, I'll say, honey, I'm hitting a hard 9 right now. And he's like, okay, gotcha. You need support right now. He might come and just give me a hug or say, you want to go be by yourself? And I'm like, yeah. And we get it. We're not upset about it. Like, let me get into my 4 to 7, and then we're going to talk about whatever it is that was bothering us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that 1 to 10. That is such a valuable image for people to, be able to take a piece of paper, write those things out, because I never learned those things. Nobody ever taught it to me. Until I met a lady. Her name is Amy
Apigian.
Thank you. I always struggle with her last name.
I knew where you were going. She is the one that nailed it for me too. Yeah.
She changed my whole understanding of my nervous system.
Yes.
The biology of trauma, the picture that she showed of the up and down. And I thought, oh my God, yes, I have lived in a stress response my entire life, living in the 8 to 9, waking up in the 10, and repeating the cycle and not having any tools to get down to the 4, the 5, the 6 to 7. I didn't have those tools.
Yeah.
And she was definitely a game changer. I still follow her and at least try to take one of her workshops every week.
Yeah.
I've already pre-ordered her book.
Yes.
Because it is, again, it goes back to that knowledge. When we can acquire new knowledge and understand what is going on with our body, that is the greatest power achieve for ourselves. Is understanding.
Yes.
I mean, just my first workshop with her, I was like, why have I never known this? Why didn't anybody ever, explain it in terms that were very simple to understand? And I thank you for how you explained your 1 through 10. And it made me think too, when you were talking about how you can tell your husband, I'm at a hard 9. Brene Brown in her book talks about the difference between being in the weeds and being blown. So she shares her story as working in a restaurant in the service industry where she's serving food, and her stress level is either I'm in the weeds, like I can already feel my stress level coming up and coming up and coming up, and I can't handle it. And I know if I go back out there, something's going to go severely wrong. And being able to communicate that with her supervisor and saying the difference between the two, either I'm in the weeds and it's coming, or I'm completely blown. And they set it up in a way that when their staff learn that tool to be able to communicate when they were
Mhm.
achieving that level of stress, that everyone was given a certain amount of time and you had to literally walk outside. You couldn't stay within the restaurant. You had to completely step away from whatever was coming up and take a few minutes to take those deep breaths.
Yeah.
And they knew that they were safe to disclose that to their boss.
Mm-hmm.
They were validated in what they were experiencing, and they were provided the tool and time.
Time. Yeah. How
So
awesome that
when
he
you said
received
that,
that. Yeah.
that was the image that I saw, was her story. And it's at the very beginning of her book, she talks about that.
That is so great. I love that. And like you said, being able to recognize it and communicate it. And another piece that was from Dr. Amy too, that was key for me, because I found her, one of the first people I found in my own digging in, was that we don't process trauma until we regulate the nervous system. And that was when I went, oh my gosh, I've been processing and processing and processing that cerebral
Yep.
type, personality of mine, and didn't even understand what regulating was about, And so to be able to say, do that first, and that is a key that I have brought into becoming safe. It's something I repeat to the ladies a lot, is don't jump into the story, don't jump into the fixing and all of the work until you've got at least a few tools to bring some sense of regulation, because you will re-traumatize yourself,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the tools is, like you just said, Brene Brown, communicate it. Can you have a language around it so that people don't just go, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like a crazy right now? If you have a common language like Joel and I have, or that she had in the restaurant, I'm hitting a hard 9, I'm in the weeds, I'm being blown. Oh, okay. I know what you need. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So powerful. Yeah. You really can't do the true work that you need to do when you're in it.
No.
You need to have those tools. And for
Yeah.
me, it was meditation was my number one go-to tool that I could go to. Meditation and breathing. I could go to it whenever
Yeah.
I needed to. If it was just 5 minutes sitting in my car and using the tools that I had developed to calm my nervous system before having to go back in. And we talked I'll bring this up briefly, but when you were talking about when you give somebody that you feel you're safe, you disclose something to an employer, and then you get punched in the gut with betrayal trauma, knocks the wind out of you. That is literally why I left the legal field, because that happened. I disclosed my traumas, which my trauma was from 20 years earlier that I had never healed from. I had put it in Pandora's box and experienced a trigger on the job that opened that box wide open, and it all came rushing out. And, I immediately got up and went and communicated that to my supervisor. I said, this is happening. This is why I'm experiencing it. This case is, bringing up traumas that I thought I was over. We're never over those things completely. But, I thought that I had put them away and I had been functioning fine for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then I had this huge betrayal trauma. And one thing you said, and I think it was in relation to something else, but it was just, his favorite line was, it's just,
Say that again.
it's just,
Okay.
I don't know why this is bothering you so much right now.
I hear you.
And you can just ignore it, that this isn't your situation. This isn't what happened to you 20 years earlier. It's just a motion. It's just a hearing. You just send this to a judge. And in that, then came the trauma response.
Yeah.
The brain fog, the memory loss, the panic attacks, the anxiety, the hypervigilance. I mean, I had it all stirred up. I called it my trauma soup because I didn't know how else. I just felt
That's
like
a great word.
Giant bowl of trauma, and all these things were climbing out of the bowl. And I had gotten to a point where I couldn't verbalize it anymore. I couldn't explain what was affecting my sleep. I just knew that I wasn't sleeping well. And I would come into work and just be exhausted, to where before I could come into work and be full of energy and full of vitality and on top of everything and multitasking a million times, and everything was on point until it wasn't.
Right.
I was sunshine in the office until I wasn't.
Yeah.
And his fix for what I was going through, his acknowledging it, was he brought me a bottle of melatonin and set it on my desk and said, "Here, take this. This will help you sleep." And that just even made me more angry.
Well, it kind of reinforced that
Yep,
probably for you. It was
just
like, this is not just that I need sleep. And the picture that popped in my mind when you said that, once I got it, is like, think about the silly things. And I bet, again, our listeners could probably all pop their hands up. So something can happen. I'm thinking about like my favorite coffee mug, and I trip and drop it and break it. And all of a sudden I'm weeping, my mug, my coffee's on the floor, and my favorite mug. And I can feel like, what? It is just a mug. It is just coffee. What is wrong with you? But it's not that was what allowed whatever's been in there to come out, to access the emotion. And I love that possibility of saying, these things show up for us. Your job situation, the proverbial broken mug on the floor, when we're ready to go, like you also said, I thought I dealt with this. That came to me too when I had my resurfacing in 2021. I dealt with this. I've done the counseling. I've read the books. I've been teaching classes. I've dealt with this. Not completely, not the stuck stuff. It's ready to come out. And that can be the beautiful part. We can reframe our triggers to say, oh, this is showing up for me because I'm ready. And we're not going to feel very ready, because what I've found is it's like, here, I'm not ready. And the beginning of ready is when it shows up. And so you feel like, wow, probably how you felt at work. Like, I cannot do this. I cannot show up another day. I can't sleep. I can't cope. And this is what ready looks like. Just imagine what it felt like. That's why it got stuck, because the unready was 10 times harder. So that can also give us the compassion to say, what a beautiful design that I was able to dissociate, that I was able to go into the trauma soup and the smushy brain and push it all away for a time so that I could take care of myself the best that I could at that time. And when it's ready, it's going to float to the surface. And this is where many people that are probably tuning in are already in the float to the surface. They're going, okay, I'm looking around. That's when we often wake up, is when we're hit over the head with it. And then we get the tools. And that is a beautiful gift of life. Not always the most fun, but if we can reframe it and say, oh, this is showing up for me. Everything is for me. The abundance of provision is right there for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the most powerful things after the fact, when you've done the work, when you're healed and you can see it from a completely different perspective and direction.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it's my favorite 2 words or 3 words, I guess, is I get to.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And it goes to your song. It's that choice that we get. Because I allowed myself to be guilted to, I quit my job, then I guilt myself, then I quit again. And then they guilted me the second time. And then the third time, there was no choice. I had to make that choice for myself, for my physical health, my mental health.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been one of those open door people. If there's a door in front of me, and it's open, I can walk through it. And I thank the door for being open.
I love that. Thank the door.
I have to reach for the handle and I have to jiggle the door, and the door gives me resistance, then I know that there's more work than I need to do. But if that door is open and I can choose to walk through it, and always turn around and thank the door for being open, because it's
so great.
It has been something throughout my life that I go back and I thank that door for being there.
Yeah.
When I didn't feel like I was strong enough to make those choices myself.
Yeah. Gratefulness is so powerful. And even that concept of an open door, bring a horse thing in again. If I'm training a horse to do something, I always think, where's the open door for them so they can learn? If there's just pressure on them and they can't figure it out, you will see frustration and even dangerous behavior. But if there's the open door, if I'm trying to teach them to step sideways off the pressure of my leg, I want to make sure that the way that I want them to go feels very open to them. So it's that same sort of a feeling that life will put pressures on us. If we can slow down enough to go, wait, okay, that pressure, instead of pushing back on it, going, oh, I feel that resistance, but to go, wait, where's the open door? Maybe life is actually pressing me toward the open door. If I can see it as a gift, the gratitude that you're talking about, just pause long enough instead of being in that victim mentality wants to think everything is happening to me and is against me. If I can just maybe suspend it, even if I don't even love the word believe, don't say, don't believe that or believe this, just be open to the possibility that what would it look like if I suspended that thought that life is against me? What if I reframed it and said, what if this is showing up for me? What possibilities would open up? What door would be, oh, well, look at that. I didn't even see it when I was focused on pushing back on the closed pressure, which a horse will do at first. And I just keep that soft pressure. And the minute they even think in the direction of the open door, I just drop everything for a second. That's that, oh, we have those moments in life. If we look at them, we go, oh, there was that sort of, my body felt it. That was it. That was it. The inner whisper, that innate wisdom that is really directing us. And then, like you said, having, oh, thank you, door, for being open. What a beautiful thing. So I've found that too. And having that gratitude for all of the versions of me. I had a good friend say that I honor all versions of me, and I've adopted that as my own. I do. And I'm grateful to all the Stacys that have shown up along my timeline. Yeah, she's pretty cool.
She is pretty cool.
Thank you.
I'm sure that we have both shared some pretty hard things in our lives. I'm sure that we have listeners out there who may now be struggling with some of their feelings coming up. Would you honor us by walking us through just a couple of releasing breaths so
Absolutely.
that if we leave this time with these people and with each other, we are ready to go forward in our day?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I'll just invite every one of us, just find it comfortable, but if you can, have your feet on the floor. If not, just sink in and relax. That's also a Hebraic term I love. It means it's translated as be still. But sometimes stillness can feel very unsafe. It can feel stuck. But if we can think of be still as sink in and relax. So wherever you are, if you can, if you're driving a car, pull over or sink in and relax while you're driving. But let's just all sink in and relax for a moment. And first, just tune into your natural breath. Just notice it coming in, filling you up, and coming out. And then just see if you can deepen all of that. As it comes in, just pull it down a little bit deeper into the belly. Expand your capacity just maybe 10% more. Hold it just for a second longer, and then just let it float away a little longer. And let's do that again, a couple more together. In, hold, feel it all, and let it go. And do another one with your own rhythm. Breathe it in. Expand as much as feels good to you. Hold as long as you want to. And then when you're ready, just release it. And let it go. And then just again, return to that natural breath, floating in, floating out. And maybe if you can, just take your arms and wrap yourself up for a moment and just feel the pressure of your own hands on your arms. Maybe rub up and down your arms and even say, I love you if you can. I'm here for you. I'm going to show up for you in whatever capacity I have. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to fill up all the space that is me, no more, no less. I don't need to diminish for anyone, and I don't need to pour over into their circle. I can be all of me all the time. I'm not threatening anyone, and I'm not in threat. I am. With every breath, I am. And just flutter your eyes back open, coming back to this space together, maybe looking at the screen or around you, and just that sense of how you felt there. That is accessible. You just accessed that good feeling all by yourself. All I did was guide you, but you can do that whenever you need it. And I'm just honored to have been able to hold that little bit of space with you.
Thank you again so much.
Yeah.
I know that just those few breaths help me kind of come back into myself, taking a quick second to orient to where I am
Yeah.
and where I'm sitting. And, you know, Stacey reminds us that healing isn't just possible, it's beautiful. Through breath, music, nervous system regulation, and honest storytelling, she models a path of deep soul recovery and self-trust. Whether you're walking through betrayal trauma or guiding others on their journey, this conversation offers a compass for a song of your heart. You can learn more about Stacey's work, courses, and breathwork offerings at becomingsafe.com. Follow her music through her website, social platforms. All of the links will be in the show notes. If this conversation resonated with you like it did for me, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep choosing joy, keep choosing healing, and keep your happiness on tap. Stacey, thank you so much.
Thank you, Leann. I'm deeply honored, and thank you all for listening and showing up for yourselves.
Thank you.